Hello, guys. Good morning.
Good
Hello.
morning, sir.
Yeah, can you all hear me?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good
How
morning, sir.
how are you all?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, great. We thank God for giving us another opportunity of life. We are here this morning to continue with the series of lessons that we shall be having from we have started having, and hopefully we shall end somewhere in September. Um, the last week I introduced you to agric, and we looked at agriculture as a science and an art. We also looked at the importance of agric to us as individuals, to us as a society, and then to us as an economy, right? Now we understand that agric is the production of animals and the growing of crops, all right? Now, if we are growing crops, then we must look at where the crops grow, which is the soil. All right. So, in our lesson today, we shall be looking at even where the soil comes from, what makes soil. Okay. But before we get into our lesson, I'd like us to look at a brief recap of what we did last week. Um, I am. I don't know you guys very well, but I'll be mentioning some of the names over here to answer a number of questions that I'll be asking. I think the first person I'll ask is Grace. Are you there? Grace, unmute yourself and answer this question for me.
Say, please, I was not here last week. I
You're not
just
here.
started this week.
Oh, okay. Where is Kelvin? Is Kelvin there? Nova Prince, are you there? Nova Prince, unmute yourself and answer this question. Nova Prince, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, so define what modern agric is. Modern agriculture.
It is the production of crops and rearing of farm animals
Mm-hmm.
by using modern technology.
Okay, using advanced technology and processes. Okay, fine. Well, I see Pearl Ajo Alate. Would you give us give us the definition for farming systems and mention two farming systems that are practiced in Ghana? Pearl.
Sir,
Yes.
farming system. Yes, sir.
Let's hear you.
Farming system refers to the way farming activities are carried out.
Okay. So examples of farming
And
systems practiced in Ghana.
so we have shifting cultivation,
Mm-hmm.
mixed cropping,
Mm-hmm.
and then mixed farming.
Okay, great. Great. Who else is there? Nolin Bena. Are you there? Unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yes, Nolin. Is that Nolin? Okay, so define the term cash cropping. Cash cropping.
So cash cropping is when a farmer engages in a farm to cultivate in order to make money.
All right, great. Basically for profit. Basically for profit, and that's excellent. Okay, who else do I find here? I find Peggy. Peggy. Are you there, Peggy? Is Peggy there? Peggy. Peggy is not there. What about Vinyo Ansel? Vinyo Ansel. Vinyo,
Sir,
yes, Vinyo Ansel, you're there, right?
sir,
Yes. So tell us what fish farming is.
sir, I wasn't there when you were teaching, so this was my first time in your
This
class.
this is your first class. Okay, all right. Who else is there? Teresa Sosa. Teresa Sosa. Can I hear you?
So it's my first time in the class.
Okay. All right. So who will answer the next question? Raise. Let me show by hands. Whose hand is up? Ganyo Princess. Ganyo Princess. Ganyo Princess. Ganyo Princess, can you hear us? Frida Adabla. Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All of you can hear. Then let's,
Yes, we can hear. Not clear.
but not clearly.
Mhm.
Yes, please. So if you can match your voice, it will be good.
Really? Okay. Let's see how it goes. But let me just let me know when you can't hear properly, okay? Okay, let's get on to what I have for you today, which is rocks. We shall be looking at rocks today. At the end of the lesson, in fact, we shall. I expect that from the hello. I expect that we'll be able to cover the definition for rocks, the types of rocks, the importance of rocks, and then if we we have enough time, we will start with weathering of rocks. All right. Then at the end of the lesson, I expect you guys to be able uh, to define rocks. All right, and be able to outline the various types of rocks there are, together with their characteristics. Then, of course, um, you should be able to familiarize yourself with some of the types of rocks, and you know you know where each type belongs to. All right. Then, if we have time, I'll start with withering, and I'll expect you guys to to know how soil is formed. All right. So let's go into our lesson.
The boy. The boy.
All right. They are also a source of relevant soil nutrients. All the nutrients that are in the soil come from the rocks, apart from the chemical and other applied fertilizers that we add to the soil. Other than that, the soil naturally gets its nutrients from the rocks that form them. All right. Then, of course, rocks are used to check erosion. You see that the rocks are hard, and if you have rocks to border your farm or a farmland, then the rocks will control the rates at which water runoff enters the farm, or the rocks will redirect the channel of runoff. All right, now runoff is the water that runs on the ground during rain time or when it's raining. All right, so the rocks will redirect the channel. Now, of course,
please, I can't hear you clearly.
can you hear me now?
Please, I can't.
Is that Theophilus?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Let's go on. Even if you go to the seaside, such as at Keta and some parts of Accra, we use rocks to make the sea defense. All right, we use huge stones and gravels to make the sea defense structures. All right, so those are some of the importance of rocks. Now let's look at types of rocks. Based on how the rocks are formed, there are 3 types. All right. The first one we shall look at is the igneous rock. Then we shall look at the sedimentary rocks. Then we shall look at the metamorphic rocks. All right, let's go on and see what the igneous rocks are. Now, igneous rocks, the word igneous comes from the Greek word ignis. And ignis means fire. Ignis means fire. Now, igneous rocks are formed from a hot liquid inside the earth crust. This liquid is called molten magma, or basically lava. All right. Now they are called igneous because the lava that forms them is formed from fire. All right. Now what happens is that there is intense heating and pressure within the earth's crust, okay? And that makes some of the minerals melt, all right? And even parts of the earth's crust melt at the center of the earth. And this heat and pressure forces some of the liquid to the surface of the earth, all right? To the surface of the earth, or very near the surface of the earth. And that is how, so once the magma comes out of its place to the surface of the earth or near the surface of the earth, it cools down and crystallizes, all right? And this the cooling and crystallization would transform the lava into what we call the igneous rocks. Are you okay with that? There are 2 types of igneous rocks. These are plutonic and volcanic rocks. Plutonic and volcanic igneous rocks. Now, Plutonic igneous rocks are the rocks that take a long time to cool after the magma erupts to the surface of the earth. All right, they take a long time to cool. They don't cool fast. All right, so a typical example is granite. Then there's a second one called the volcanic or extrusive rock. These ones, as soon as they erupt to the surface of the earth, they cool immediately. All right. Examples are basalt and quartz. These are huge igneous rocks that cool at the surface of the earth. All right. Let's continue and look at the characteristics of igneous rocks. Now, igneous rocks are very massive, very, very massive. They are huge. They are hard to. You cannot press them. They are very hard. Then they are also shiny. They are shiny. They are shiny because they contain a lot of crystals. So we say that they are crystallized, all right? They are crystallized rocks. So because of the crystals, they shine a lot. They are made of primary materials or minerals such as quartz, feldspar, and hornblende. All these are minerals that make up rocks, okay? All these names, quartz and coal, quartz, feldspar, and hornblende, they are minerals that make up rocks, all right? Now, they are resistant to erosion and any form of weather condition because the rocks are hard and massive, all right? So they cannot be easily washed away by water. So that's that about the igneous rocks. Again, these ones are not stratified and they are not fossilized. Now, stratification has to do with layers, as in whether the rocks form in layers. Maybe maybe it falls on another in a particular form or layer. Igneous rocks are not like that. They are just irregularly shaped and huge and massive. All right. They are not fossilized. This means that they don't contain fossils. They don't contain fossils. And a fossil is the hardened or cemented remains of a prehistoric animal or plant material. All right. For igneous rocks do not contain any dead organism. They are formed from molten magma. They are formed from molten magma that has erupted to the surface of the earth or to an area very close to the surface of the earth. All right. So you see igneous rocks in mountains. All right. If you go to, I don't know how well you people know Ho, but areas around the before you get to Banco EP, that's the junction at Mount Zion Clinic. You know, there are some huge rocks there. Those are typical examples of igneous rocks. All right, let's move on and look at sedimentary rocks. Now, sedimentary rocks are the rocks that are formed from the deposition and hardening of sediments of pre-existing rocks. All right. They are formed from the deposition and hardening of sediments of pre-existing rocks. This means that some rocks already exist, all right, and then they crack or break into smaller pieces, right? Now, these pieces form in layers, all right? and over time, other pieces also fall on them. And then they become hardened together. They become cemented together. So layer 1 becomes cemented to layer 2, and layer 3, and layer 4, layer 5, in that order. All right. So the sediments often are chips of other rocks and organic matter which settle, forming in layers of strata. So the sedimentary rocks are also called stratified rocks. Stratified rocks. Now the strata is also called the layer. All right. In any case, sedimentary comes from the Greek word called sedimere. Sedimere. And sedimere means to sit down. To sit down. Now, if you have that idea of sitting down, then you will see the rock particles or the rock chips from the pre-existing rock falling down and settling quietly. Then another one also comes to fall and settle on it. Then another one also comes to settle on it. Then another one also falls and settles on it, in that order. Okay. All right. So that gives you the idea of rocks becoming sedimentary, like settling on each other to form a layer or strata. Okay. They are made of secondary minerals such as dolomite, gypsum, calcite, and clay. Now, all these minerals form or make up sedimentary rocks. So if you want to test a rock or a group of rocks to see whether they are sedimentary or igneous, we will look out for the minerals that are in the rocks. If we find granite, no, if we find quartz, feldspar, and hornblende, then we know that that particular rock is igneous rock. But if we find clay, gypsum, calcite, and dolomite, then we know that the particular rock is a sedimentary rock. Now, let's look at the types of sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rocks are further grouped based on how they are formed. All right. So we shall look at those that are formed chemically, those that are formed mechanically or physically, then those that are formed biologically or organically. All right. First one, those that are chemically formed. These ones are formed from chemical activities that involve exchange of ions. All right. And these exchange of ions alter the chemical compositions of the minerals that make up the rocks. All right. So examples of chemically formed sedimentary rocks are gypsum, dolomite, kaolin, white clay, kaolin clay or white clay, potash, sodium chloride. Sodium chloride is our normal table salt. Saltpeter is in Ewe it is called well, in my language it's called kanwe. I don't know how people call it in Ewe actually. Then the white clay is normally called ayilo. I don't know how you people call it. All right, but the gypsum, that is I think calcium sulfate. Yes, hydrated calcium sulfate. That's a KaSO4.2H2O. Yes, that's a hydrated calcium sulfate. The gypsum. I think the science students will bail me out. All right, then let's look at the mechanically formed rocks. These ones are formed when rock materials move from one location to another. All right, Now, as the rock moves, it may hit against another rock, or it may hit against a stumbling block, or it may hit against just anything that is in its way, or maybe some other sediments. All right. Now, this hitting, back and forth hitting, will result in cracks and some changes in the shape and the size. All right. So that is how that's mechanically formed sedimentary rocks. So it is because the rocks are moving or they are being displaced from their parent position. All right. So examples of such rocks are gravels, and sandstone. We have another one which is limestone and clay. Then there's another one called breccia. Let's look at those that are formed by biological activities or by living organisms. These ones are formed from the activities of plants, animals, and microorganisms. You know that some plants make their homes or their habitats deep inside the soil underground. All right. So the way they dig into the soil will crack or break some rocks. I hope you understand that. Then there are some plants that have roots that are very long. The roots spread very, very deep into the soil. Now, as the roots grow, they increase in size, all right? And the increase in size also pushes the rocks apart. You understand? And with time, these rocks will crack. So that is a way by which animals and plants and other microorganisms would form sedimentary rocks. Now, example of some of the rocks that are formed by this way is peat. Example is peat. Another example is coal. And the third one is lignite. And there are some other examples you can look out for by yourself. All right. Now let's look at the general characteristics of sedimentary rocks. These ones, because they are formed in layers, right? They have what we call lines of weakness. All right. So the point of attachment of one layer to another layer is called line of weakness. And this line of weakness makes the sedimentary rock susceptible to erosion. All right. So they are not that hard and resilient. So once there are agents of erosion such as running water or strong wind, then the sedimentary rock can break into smaller pieces. I hope you're understanding what we are doing so far.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then let's go on. They are highly fossilized. That means that they contain fossil records. They contain fossil records. Now, I told you earlier on that fossils are hardened remains of prehistoric plants and animals. So the reason, or one of the main reasons why we know that dinosaurs ever existed is because we have seen their fossils or fossil records. All right. So the sedimentary rocks contains dead remains of plants and animals that lived several years ago. All right. They are also stratified. That means that yes.
Sir.
Yes, I'm a prince. I'm a rejoice.
The line is breaking.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, the line is breaking at my end.
Is it okay now?
Oh, it's still breaking.
It's still breaking.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Let's see if it gets better. Let me know. Is it okay now?
It is. It is.
Okay, great. Let's continue. Then they may be coarse, example gravel, or fine like clay. All right. So so you see two extremes. The gravel and the clay are all examples of sedimentary rocks. So you see that there is no unique texture, unlike in the igneous rocks where they are massive, they are hard, all of them. But over here, you can see some that are smooth and fine, like the clay, and there are some others that are coarse and rough, like the gravel. All right. Then some may be soft, while others too will be hard. Okay. These ones do not contain crystals, so they are dull colored. All right. Or they are not necessarily shiny because there are no crystals in them. All right. So that is that about sedimentary rocks. Shall we now move on and look at let's move on and look at metamorphic rocks. Now, the name metamorphic comes from the Greek word metamorpho. Metamorpho, that means to change. All right, change in form, to change in form. All right. Now, metamorphic rocks are rocks that form from changes in form, in shape, and in size of igneous and sedimentary rocks. All right. So when sedimentary and igneous rocks change in any way, then they become metamorphic rocks. They become rocks that have changed in form, basically. I hope you understand that. So they form when pre-existing rocks are subjected to extreme pressure and high temperatures over a long period of time. All right. So now the process by which rocks change in form, in shape, and in size is what we call rock metamorphosis. All right. And the process of rock metamorphosis changes the chemical makeup of some of the constituent minerals of the original rock, but it doesn't melt them. All right. So this intense temperature and pressure will make some of the minerals, or the chemicals in some of the minerals to change. All right. If there are chemicals that cannot survive the intense heat, then they will change to something else. All right. Now, because of these kind of changes, the metamorphic rock formed from an igneous rock, which is made of primary minerals, will contain both primary and secondary minerals. I hope you understand. So if we have some rocks and want to find out which type of rock they are, if we see both calcite and quartz in the rock, then we know that it is a metamorphic rock. If we see only feldspar in the rock, then we know that it is an igneous rock. If we see only gypsum or only dolomite or only calcite or a combination of any of these three, then we know that that rock is a sedimentary rock. Okay. So now let's see the pre-existing rock from which some metamorphic rocks develop. So the causite develops from sandstone, whereas the marble develops from limestone. The schist develops from conglomerates. The conglomerates is just like gravels. Is it gray? The gravel that is used in making the road. All right. That's an example of a conglomerate. All right. Then we have gneiss, Gneiss, developing from graphite. All right. So these pre-existing rocks are examples of igneous and sedimentary rocks. If they change in form and shape and size, then they become these metamorphic rocks. All right. What are the characteristics of metamorphic rocks? All of them are dull and rough in appearance. Metamorphic rocks are not attractive at all. All right. They are massive and hard and dense. In fact, they are the most massive of all the rocks. All right. They have irregular shapes, irregular sizes. Who is talking? And what are you saying? Okay, let's go on. I said these rocks are the most massive and hardest of all the rocks. All right, they have irregular shape, and they are partly foliated. Now, foliated means that they have small air spaces or small lines that join them together, because after all, they are also developing from changes in original sedimentary and igneous rocks. All right, so they have foliates in between them. Okay, so basically those are the types of rocks that we have. We have looked at igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, and metamorphic rocks. We said that igneous rocks come from molten magma, whereas sedimentary rocks are formed when other rocks and plant and animal materials are deposited on each other, and then they become cemented over a long period of time. All right. Then metamorphic rocks are those rocks that are formed when both igneous and sedimentary rocks change in shape, in size, and then sometimes their composition. All right. Now we said that igneous rocks are usually massive, they are shiny, and they are made of primary minerals. Then, of course, they are resistant to erosion. Sedimentary rocks, we said that based on how they are formed, there are three types. The chemically formed ones, example, sodium chloride, which is the normal table salt. Then we have those that are formed from biological activity, such as plants and animal activities. An example is the peat, the coal, and the lignite. Then there are those sedimentary rocks that are formed mechanically. An examples are gravels and sandstone and clay. All right. Then we said that their characteristics, they have the major characteristics of sedimentary rocks is the fact that they have lines of weakness that make them
Sir,
yes.
please, someone is writing on the screen.
And who is doing that? I can see it too. Please stop that.
Marvin.
You can see that what you are doing is having an effect on the screen. Stop it.
Yes, sir. A person to the Anipa Malvi.
Hey, I'm not the one.
It's Marvin.
Whoever is doing that should stop it. When we have hello,
Malvin.
listen carefully. Listen
It's
carefully.
Anipa Malvi. Yeah, I'll say that.
Keep
Deborah.
quiet. Keep quiet. Whoever is doing that should stop. And let me sound this as a warning to all of you. When we have a class online, pay attention. If you don't have any question to ask, just keep quiet and follow the class. All right? Stop playing with these things. Let's continue. I'm saying that one of the most important feature of sedimentary rocks is the fact that they have lines of weakness, all right, which makes them prone to erosion. And then, of course, we can find fossils in them, all right? So these are very important points about sedimentary rocks. Then the metamorphic rocks, we said that they are formed when both igneous and sedimentary rocks change in shape and size and form. All right. And then we have seen some of the pre-existing rocks from which metamorphic rocks form. All right. Now let's look at what we call withering of rocks. Withering of rocks. Now, as I introduced you to the course, I told you that while I was introducing, I told you that soil is the main resource on which agriculture is done. All right. So if we are doing agric, then it's important for us to also look at where we do the agric, right? Now, where we do the agric is the soil, but where does the soil come from? It comes from rocks. But then how does the rock become soil? That brings us to what we are coming to do now, weathering of rocks. Now, what is weathering? It is the process by which rocks disintegrate, decompose, or break into smaller particles. Mute yourselves. Who are those talking over there? Simon.
Sir.
Mute yourself. Domevenu. So I was saying that weathering of rocks refers to the process by which rocks disintegrate, decompose, or break into smaller pieces. All right. It can also be defined as the gradual process, all right, in which rocks break down, disintegrate, or decompose into finer particles by agents such as water, pressure, atmospheric oxygen, roots of plants, or wind, all right, over a long period of time. So the gradual process by which rocks break down or decompose into finer particles by agents such as water and pressure and temperature changes. Is that okay? That is the only way by which a rock can become soil. So the rocks will have to break down. The rocks would have to disintegrate, all right, or crack into smaller pieces until it becomes fine like dust. All right. Types of weathering. There are three types of withering. The first one is physical withering. Then we have chemical withering. And the last one, biological withering. Now, these types are based on how the withering occurs. All right, just like we saw in sedimentary rocks, how they are formed. Based on how they are formed, we have chemically formed sedimentary rocks, organically formed sedimentary rocks, or mechanically formed sedimentary rocks. In weathering too, based on how the weathering occurs, we have chemical weathering, which is formed, or which is the type of weathering that is initiated or made possible by changes in the chemical composition of the mineral components of the rock. Then we have the biological withering, which has to do with plants and animals that live within the rocks. Then we have the mechanical withering, which has to do with a displacement or movement of the rock from one location to another, or movement of something else against the rock. All right, so let's go into the physical withering and look at what happens over there. Now, the physical withering is also called mechanical withering, and it is caused by changes in temperature, water, and wind. All right, so once there are extreme changes in temperature, and there is movement of water, and there is movement of wind against the rocks, it will reduce the rocks in size, and then the minerals they contain, not the composition of the minerals, but the amount of the minerals that they contain. Now, take it like this, that if a rock cracks, all right, and the rock contains liquid minerals, would you agree with me that the mineral will seep out? Would you agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So that's what I mean by the fact that the minerals will have reduction, but not a change in their composition. Let's look at the effect of temperature on physical weathering. Now, wide temperature extremes, for example, especially in our part of the world where we have very hot days and very cold nights, all right, we would see that this extremes of temperature, all right, high temperatures at a point in time and then low temperatures at another point in time, will influence the disintegration of the rocks. It will influence the cracking, all right, of the rocks into smaller particles. All right, now at high temperatures, what happens? The rocks will expand, all right, and then at low temperatures, the rocks will contract. Now, as this contraction and expansion go on over time, there is stress created on the rocks, all right? Now, as the rock becomes so stressed, it tears apart. Now, as it tears apart, then we are getting smaller pieces of the rock, all right? Now, in very cold regions, where temperatures are low below freezing point, what happens? Even the water in the rock crevices will solidify or will freeze. Now, when water freezes, it increases or it expands in size. Is that correct? Now, when when the water forms ice within the rocks, it will cause the rock to expand and then crack as a result. I hope you understand that. Anyway, I'll be sending you I'll be sending you some pictures.
Tell us.
I'll give you how do you call it, PowerPoint presentations and some videos and pictures on this lesson so that you can appreciate what happens during weathering. All right. So that is how, yeah, that is how temperature impacts on weathering, especially physical weathering. So we are talking about extremes, temperature extremes. Okay, this time it is very high, then another time it is low. Now this continuous high, low, low, high temperature changes or differences will make, so it will make the rock be stressed, because during high temperatures the rock will expand, then during low temperatures it will contract. All right, so this contraction, relaxation, contraction, expansion happening over time will crack the rocks. All right, then like I said, if water is in the rock already and the temperatures are low, below freezing point, then the water in the rock or in the crevices of the rock will become ice, will form ice and expand, thereby cracking the rock. I hope you understand that. Now let's look at water as another agent of physical weathering. Now, water fleeting in streams and rivers carries masses of rock particles called boulders. All right. Now, rocks that are disintegrating in water, or large rock particles in water are called boulders. All right. Now, as the water carries them about, they hit one another. All right, they collide with one another or with any hindrance or any other sediment in the water. All right, now as this happens, they crack into smaller pieces. In ice glaciers in cold regions, uh, also grind off rock particles that pass over them. Now you see that the edges of ice are not rough. All right, the edges of ice are not rough. Sorry, they are not smooth. I beg your pardon. They are not smooth. They are rough and irregularly shaped. All right. So when any material passes over them, then they kind of scratch, whatever passes over them. So as the rock particle is carried by the water over the ice glaciers, I'm talking about in Australia, in New Zealand, some parts of Japan, where temperatures are extremely low at certain parts of the year. You understand? So as the rock particles are passed over the ice glaciers, they become, the ice glaciers chop off pieces of the rock as it passes over them. All right. So that is how water also plays a role in physical weathering. Bear in mind, physical weathering has to do with what? Movement. Either the rock is moving or something is moving over the rock. In this case, we see that the rocks are moving. Now let's look at the effect of wind. Now, what is wind? Wind is air in motion, air that is moving. Air that is moving is wind. All right. Now, in desert regions, the wind carries sand particles as it moves. All right. Now, the rocks that are exposed in desert regions continuously are hit by the sand particles carried by the wind. All right. Now this this uninterrupted hitting of sand, hitting of the exposed rock by sand, all right, you know, always removes bits of the rock, all right, chips of the rock are taken away by the, you know, continuous heating of the sand. I hope you understand that. It is not something you can see, all right, but it happens in real life because the sand is always carried by the wind, and if it is hitting the rock for a long time, you will see that at every time there are particles of the rock that are falling off, but you will not be able to know unless you really want to study it. All right. Yeah, so that is that. There are some other causes of physical weathering, and these are geological processes such as earthquakes, and earth tremors. All right. Now let's look at the next one, which is biological weathering. Biological weathering. Now, biological weathering is caused by living organisms, including human beings. All right. It involves the cracking and breaking down of rocks under pressure, including stress from the growing roots. Growing roots of plants and the activities of humans, such as farming, construction, and so on and so forth. I hope you understand that. Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, please, you can see the notes on biological weathering.
Yes, I'm not giving you that one. So I'll add it later, and then I'll send to you on the Google Classroom. So just pay attention. All right. So
sir, please.
Who is talking?
No, it's okay.
All right. Then let's go on. I'm saying that biological withering is affected by living organisms, all right, such as including human beings. Okay, so it occurs when our activities put unnecessary pressure and stress on the rocks. Okay, so example is the developing roots of plants within the soil. All right. Animals making their homes deep down with between crevices of the rocks. Then of course human beings cracking the rocks for construction and many other activities. All right. Green plants, mosses, and some algae, all right, they are the main causes of biological weathering. Some of them grow on the surface of the earth. Some others also grow, or like I mentioned, some animals make their homes within the crevices or some the holes in the rocks. Okay, now their activities over there impact or put some pressure on the rock, and that makes the rock to disintegrate. All right. Again, bear in mind that some plants and some animals also release chemicals that literally melt the rocks or dissolve the rocks. Okay, if you continually, I don't know, if you continually, okay, I don't know if you have ever observed this, but I don't know if you've ever gone to a bat cave before. Bat cave. Those of you who went to Shy Hills the other day, I don't know, were you there at the time that we were taken to the bat cave, where we see the bat, the feces and the urine of the bats, all right, have how do you call it? Torn part of the rocks, part of the cave. Maybe you didn't observe that, but it is real. It is real. So the chemicals in the urine and the feces have, over the time, over the long period of time that the rocks have been exposed to those chemicals, have, cracked or broken parts of the rocks. That is a classical example of biological withering. Okay. Let us look at who is still drawing on the screen. Who is doing that? Who is doing that? If I see this again, I'll stop sharing the screen with you. All right, be warned. The next time I see this, I'll stop sharing the screen. So I'll come and you will not see any screen. I'll only send the screen or whatever material I want to give you. I'll send it to the Google Classroom, and that will be that. Your last warning. Okay, now let's look at chemical withering. Now, this one is a process by which rocks disintegrate or break into smaller particles as a result of changes in the composition of the chemical components of them. As a result of changes in the chemicals, all right, of the mineral component of the rock. Take note, the process by which rocks disintegrate or break into smaller pieces resulting from changes in the chemical composition of the mineral components of the rock. The changes in the chemical composition of the mineral components of the rock. Okay, so I said chemical withering refers to the process by which rocks disintegrate or break into smaller pieces as a result of changes in the composition of the chemicals in the mineral components of the rock, right? Now that happens in many ways, but I will not go into that now because our time is up. But we have oxidation, hydration, reduction, carbonation. All right, so in our next lesson, we shall look at each of those processes. All right, then we'll end the study of rocks over them. Then we'll look at the next thing we'll look at will be the nitrogen cycle. All right, so you may read around that, but I'll send your assignment to the Google Classroom for you to download and present to me over there. Let me hear from you what concerns you have. Now you can unmute yourselves and let me get a feedback. Any question? If you have a question, raise your hand and mute yourself and ask. Yes, Peggy.
Sir, I wanted to ask if glass is also made from rocks.
Glass.
Yes.
Yes, materials that are used to make glass are also in the soil, are also in rocks.
So now you can see.